Have you ever wondered why the more you react, the more your value seems to diminish? There are insults that don't need a response, because when you choose silence, you're responding with your dignity. But how do you stay silent without being seen as weak? The answer lies in a place you probably haven't considered. They say you have to stand up, fight back, show them who you are. But in reality, silence is not surrender. It is a strategy. A way to protect your energy, your dignity, and your freedom from emotional traps others set for you. And once you truly understand this, you will never see silence the same way again. And when you walk away without offering any explanation, you're not only preserving your peace, you're leaving them with what they fear most, complete powerlessness. Because people can only hurt you when you give them permission. And when you remain silent, you're refusing to hand them that privilege. There's something not often spoken, yet deeply felt. Disrespect is a trap, a subtle, clever trap that doesn't need to touch you physically, but only needs to stir your emotions. It's not a punch, not a shout, but a smirk, a cold stare, a dismissive tone that pricks your heart in a flash. And if you react, if you rush to defend your ego, you've already given up the most valuable thing you have, your energy. Every time you go back and forth with someone unworthy, every time you try to prove yourself in a meaningless argument, you are pouring your precious energy into a bottomless pit. Some people thrive on drama. They don't seek peace or growth. They just want to drag you down to their level. They don't build, they don't heal, they destroy. And the only thing they want from you is your reaction. But when you choose silence, you don't just extinguish the fire they try to spark, you keep the flame of inner peace burning within you. Silence is not about enduring or escaping. It is a quiet declaration that says, I don't play by your rules. Remember, your energy is priceless. It determines how you feel, how you think, and the path you take every day. But it is not infinite. You can't afford to spread it across every sarcastic remark, every provocation, every unrelated drama. You have dreams to nurture, goals to reach, and a soul to protect from chaos. If you keep reacting to every petty insult, every childish act, you will soon find yourself drained. But this exhaustion doesn't come from hard work. It comes from allowing the negativity of others to steal your focus and life force. Have you noticed how some people seem to only come alive in conflict? They create tension, exaggerate situations, and then sit back to watch others unravel like it's entertainment. They don't need logic. All they need is one reaction from you to prove they can control your emotions. But you don't have to play that game. When you choose silence, you strip them of their weapons. When you stay calm, they have nothing left to hold on to. No outburst, no retaliation, no performance. Silence is a shield, not because you don't feel hurt, but because you're wise enough not to be pulled in. Silence says you know your worth and don't need a few heated seconds to prove it. A few harsh words might feel satisfying for a moment, but then what? Do they suddenly start respecting you? Do they change? Most of the time, the answer is no. In fact, your reaction only fuels them further. And before you know it, you're caught in the same tiring loop again. But if you remain silent, let your actions, your calmness, your success, and your peace speak. You take back the power. You show them their words are hollow, and eventually they stop, because people only keep poking at what responds. When there's nothing to hold on to, they're forced to let go. Some will argue, I have to defend myself. I can't let them treat me like that. But in truth, self-respect doesn't always require a reaction. It lies in knowing what deserves your time and presence. Not every battle needs your participation. Not every insult deserves a reply. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to remain silent. So when someone disrespects you, ask yourself, is this worth my energy and peace? If the answer is no, then let it go. quietly. No audience, no need to prove anything. Just the quiet awareness that you're protecting something far more valuable, your mind, your spirit, and your focus. People will talk, they'll try to provoke you, they'll plant doubt. And in those moments you'll want to react, to prove yourself, to show them you're not to be messed with. But the truth is this, talk is cheap. Anyone can talk, but action, results, and consistency speak the loudest. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them misjudge you, because in the end, it's not what they say about you that matters. It's how you live that defines who you are. You don't have to argue with anyone to prove your worth. When you live right, live strong, live clearly, your life speaks for itself. And at that point, every sarcastic word thrown at you will fall into silence because it can't stick to a grounded mind. Let the path you walk, the growth you embody, and the peace you preserve each day be your final response. And when those who once doubted you return, they'll find only one truth. You've gone too far for them to ever hurt you again. Let the journey you're walking, the growth you're cultivating, and the peace you're protecting each day be your final answer. And by the time those who once doubted you come back, they'll see only one thing. You've come so far that they can no longer reach you to cause harm. So instead of being dragged into endless confrontations, choose to preserve your energy for what truly matters. Because sometimes silence is not just a reaction, it is the most powerful declaration. And if you're wondering, after staying silent, what should I do to not only preserve my peace, but turn it into true power? Then let's move on to the next part. When you choose silence and walk away with composure, it's not that you're retreating. It's that you're creating a distance no negativity can reach. And that very distance creates the defining line between those who win and those who stay stuck. Winners don't waste energy on arguing or defending themselves against things unworthy of their attention. They don't need to raise their voices to be heard. They work in silence, stay focused on their goals, and every steady step lifts them above the noise. And the others, they just keep repeating the same cycle, arguing, getting hurt, and being trapped in their own emotional chaos. When you choose not to react, you're not just winning an argument, you're erasing it entirely. You refuse to hand over the remote control of your emotions. You stay on a higher frequency where chaos cannot reach. Successful people don't have time to justify themselves or to argue. They're busy building. They don't care about the whispers around them because they know one truth. Results speak louder than anything. Think of the truly great individuals. You won't see them respond to every criticism. They let their work and unwavering discipline speak for them. And that's exactly what you should do. Don't waste time trying to convince small minds. Just quietly become great. Let your discipline, persistence, and success be your loudest response. Because in the end, they'll have no choice but to acknowledge what they once denied. At first, they'll try to bring you down. They'll say you're not capable, that you're just dreaming, that you're not worthy. But when they see that you're unshaken, when you don't respond to their negativity, when you remain centered, they will go silent. Nothing confuses people more than facing someone who isn't affected by them. Nothing makes them feel smaller than realizing their words hold no weight in your world. And once you start succeeding, once your rise becomes undeniable, once your results start speaking for you, they'll be forced to recognize it. That is the true power of silence. It's not just about not reacting. It's about quietly focusing all your energy on what truly matters. Let them waste their breath while you build. Let them gossip while you move forward. Because in the end, it's not words, but progress and success that prove you right. When someone disrespects you, the first feeling is always pain. You feel hurt, angry, and naturally, you want to fight back. You want them to see you differently. But here's the truth. Their disrespect says nothing about you, it says everything about them. About the pain, the insecurity, the bitterness that fills them. It's a mirror reflecting their inner world, not a reflection of who you truly are. People can only treat others based on what they carry inside. Bitter people spread bitterness. Insecure people try to make others feel small just to feel big. Those who are drowning in their own pain want to pull others under with them. And if you let their words and actions affect you, you're carrying a burden that was never yours to hold. You're allowing their brokenness to become the weight in your heart. That's why silence is so powerful. It says, I see what you're doing, but I'm not engaging. It says, your words may be loud, but they cannot touch my life. Those who walk around provoking others, throwing insults, are not searching for truth. They're searching for control. They want to know if they can manipulate your emotions. They want to feel superior. They want you to react so they can feel powerful. But when you don't react, when you stay silent, you leave them alone with themselves. And that is what they fear the most. They fear facing their damaged inner world. They fear being seen. They fear being exposed. So they attack, they speak poison, they mock, but you have no obligation to respond. You don't need to explain. You don't need to argue. You don't need to demand respect from anyone. Because if someone does not carry respect within them, you cannot force them to give it to you. So when you face provocation, the most powerful thing you can do is protect your peace. So when you are faced with provocation, the most powerful thing you can do is hold on to your peace. And then comes the next question. How do you maintain that calmness in the most emotional moments? You know, staying silent in the face of disrespect is not just about protecting your inner peace. It is also a powerful declaration that you are not being controlled by anyone. And if you have ever managed to do that, you will understand this. Silence is sometimes the most forceful answer. The best thing you can do in many situations is walk away. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough not to get pulled into a meaningless fight. Not every battle is worth drawing your sword for. Some arguments are lost the moment you choose to engage. Because the real winner is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one wise enough to know when to remain silent. You were not born to spend your entire life convincing others that you deserve respect. You do not need to waste your precious minutes clashing with people who do not even value themselves. Those who cannot be kind to themselves are unlikely to treat others properly. And you are not obligated to stay so they can learn kindness. You have far more important things to focus on. Great goals, dreams waiting to take form, a higher purpose that only you can fulfill. Save your energy for those things. Some people will never respect you no matter what you do, and that is perfectly okay. Respect from others does not determine your worth or your success. Approval is not a requirement for growth. What others think of you does not define who you are. The way you live, the way you overcome, the way you refuse to let negativity dim your light, that is what defines you. So when someone disrespects you, remind yourself of one simple truth. It is not about me. It never was. They act that way not because you did something wrong, but because they carry unhealed wounds, emptiness, and insecurity within them. And you do not have to carry that burden for them. Stay silent. Stay at peace. Let them be responsible for their own words. In the end, disrespect says nothing about you. It says everything about the one who said it. There is a moment that happens right after you are insulted. A brief flash, like lightning, but strong enough to ignite your pride. Every instinct inside you will urge you to react, to respond, to set the record straight. But in that very moment, you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to an immediate reaction, the other to a silence full of strength. Most people choose the first path. They believe that fighting back means self-respect, but in truth, it is the opposite. When you react impulsively, you hand over your control. And sometimes all someone wants is to see you lose your temper. That alone gives them satisfaction. Dignity does not come from how loudly you speak. It comes from knowing when to quietly turn away, from not letting yourself be dragged into the dirt, from not allowing anyone to control your emotions. There will be people who try to pull you into their negative spiral. They will test your limits. They will poke at old wounds to make you lose your calm. And the moment you respond, you have already fallen into their trap. Because at that point, you are no longer acting from awareness, but being pulled into their game. Silence is dignity. It is self-control. It is a firm declaration. You do not have the power to control me. No yelling needed, no explanation, no defense, just a calm look, and then walk away. That is power. Many people don't understand this. They think that silence is weakness, that if you don't respond, it means you're afraid. But the truth is, real confidence doesn't need to be displayed. Just like a lion doesn't need to roar to prove it's the king of the jungle. The one who talks the most is not always the strongest. The person who always needs the last word is usually the most insecure. True strength is the ability to control yourself when everything around you is trying to pull you down. It's the ability to walk away, not because you're afraid to confront, but because you know confrontation is a waste. Some people will deliberately insult you just to see how you react. They use words as sharp as knives, aiming directly at your weak spots. But if you don't retaliate, if you don't respond, they have nothing. You take back all your power into your own hands. And when you hold your peace, when you refuse to be dragged into negative energy, you don't just win over them, you win over yourself. And that is the most lasting victory. So after all, how do you maintain your peace in a world that's always noisy and provocative? How do you turn silence into not just a reaction, but a way of life? There's something few people say out loud, but all of us have felt it. Disrespect is a trap. A subtle trap that doesn't need to touch you physically, but simply stirs up an emotional wave. It's not a punch, not a shout, but snide remarks, contemptuous looks, cold attitudes that sting your heart in a split second. And if you react, if you rush to defend your ego, you've already handed over your most precious asset, your energy. Every time you argue with someone who doesn't deserve it, every time you try to prove something in a pointless confrontation, you are pouring your energy into a bottomless pit. Some people live off drama. They don't seek reconciliation or growth. They just want to drag you down to their level. They don't build, they don't heal, they only destroy. And what they want from you is your reaction. But when you stay silent, you don't just extinguish the fire they tried to ignite, you also protect the light of peace within your mind. Silence doesn't mean you're tolerating or running away. It's a quiet declaration that says, I don't play by your rules. Remember, your energy is your most valuable asset. It determines how you feel, how you think, and the direction of your life. But that energy is not infinite. You cannot waste it on every mocking word, every provocative person, every irrelevant drama. You have dreams to grow, goals to achieve, and an inner peace that needs protection from all chaos. If you keep reacting to every insult, every childish act, you'll soon fall into a state of exhaustion. But this exhaustion doesn't come from work. It comes from allowing other people's negativity to steal your focus and drain your spirit. Have you ever seen people who seem to thrive only when there's conflict? They create tension, exaggerate situations, and then sit back to watch others lose control as if it were entertainment. They don't care about logic. All they need is one reaction from you to prove they can manipulate your emotions. But you don't have to play that game. When you choose silence, you disarm them. When you remain calm, there's nothing for them to grab onto. No anger, no counterattack, no participation. Silence is a shield, not because you don't feel pain, but because you're wise enough not to get dragged into their chaos. Silence shows that you know your value, and you don't need a few angry seconds to prove it. A few harsh words might give you short-term satisfaction, but then what? Will they change? Will they stop disrespecting you? Most likely not. In fact, your reaction becomes fuel for them to continue. And soon, you're trapped in the same draining cycle all over again. But if you remain silent and let your actions, your composure, your success, and your peace speak for you, you take back control. You make their words hollow, and over time they stop. Because people only keep poking what reacts. When there's nothing to grip, they have no choice but to let go. Some people will say, I need to stand up for myself. I can't let them treat me like that. But in truth, self-respect isn't always about fighting back. It's about knowing what's worthy of your time and presence. Not every battle deserves your participation. Not every insult needs a reply. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is remain silent. So the next time someone disrespects you, ask yourself, is this worth my energy and my peace? If the answer is no, then let it go. Quietly, without a stage, without an audience. Just you, knowing that you're protecting something far more valuable, your mind, your spirit, and your focus. People will say many things. They will try to provoke you. They will plant seeds of doubt. And in those moments, you will feel the urge to react, to prove yourself, to show them you are not someone to be taken lightly. But the truth is this, talking is easy. Anyone can talk, but actions, results, and consistency speak the loudest. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them misjudge you. Because in the end, it is not their words that define who you are, but how you live your life. You do not need to argue with anyone to prove your worth. When you live with integrity, with strength, with clarity, your life speaks for itself. And at that point, all the mockery falls into silence because it cannot cling to a steadfast mind. Let your journey, your growth, and the peace you protect each day be your final response. And when those who once doubted you come back around, they will see one undeniable truth. You have gone so far they can no longer reach you to cause harm. So instead of getting dragged into endless confrontations, choose to preserve your energy for what truly matters. Because sometimes silence is not just a reaction, it is a powerful declaration. And if you are asking yourself, what should I do after choosing silence? Not only to keep my peace, but to turn it into real strength? Then let us move on to the next part. Remaining silent when insulted already takes courage. But preserving your dignity afterward, that is the real victory. The moment you walk away unshaken, without reacting in weakness or impulse, is the moment you reclaim the narrative of your own story. You are no longer defined by a single moment of losing control. You are not remembered for a burst of anger or a rash remark. Instead, you are remembered for your composure, your discipline, and your deep understanding of who you are, so much so that you never needed to prove it to anyone. Next time you are disrespected, do not mistake silence for weakness. See it as progress. As the moment you rose above the need to respond. As the way you upheld your self-respect while others lost theirs. And when you walk away, head held high and heart unburdened, you are telling the world, I know my worth well enough not to get dragged into petty battles. I do not need to raise my voice to be respected. I do not need to win with words because I have already won through choice. Because in the end, that is the true victory. Not the one won through argument, but the one earned through peace. But the question remains, how do you hold on to that peace in environments full of chaos and challenge?